Alright, let's talk about some Shojodoji here. Shojodoji recently won Worlds, which is surprising everyone, and I don't find it super surprising, but still surprising nonetheless. But Shojodoji is a deck that I've had near and dear to my heart for ever since he came out, really. Some of the most fun I've had in this format. Slept on deck, and he's pretty tricky to play, at least play well in my opinion. So let's just talk about the Rideline. So we have the Grade 1 and the Grade 2. The Grade 1 and Grade 2 are arguably the best Rideline in D format. They both do the same thing. They top 5 check for a stealth unit. They put the first one that you find into Soul, and then the Grade 1 puts into Bind Zone that you use for later, and then the Grade 2 will Superior Call it and give you basically a free unit. These are incredibly good effects. They both deck thin too. Just being able to resolve their full effects is just incredibly good for the deck, and it warrants reason enough to actually run your entire deck to fully be stealth normal units. Their second effect is what really puts them over the top. If they're in the bind zone, you can Soul Blast one and then just call them out for free. Soul is not really that much of a problem in this deck, so it really will just be a free unit half the time in the late game. It's really good in the early game, and they're just free units in the late game as well. I think this is easily one of the best Ridelines in D format right now. Let's talk about the main character of the show, Shojodoji. Shojodoji is a very interesting Vanguard. So its first effect binds 2 cards with stealth unit names from its soul, and then you choose 2 opponent's circles, not units, circles, and you bind all the cards on those circles. And then those units are returned to hand at the end of the turn. Now, this is really important to note because you have to remember that the cards return to the hand at the end of the turn. This is not removal. Unless you are using specific other pieces in the deck, those cards are not leaving the board. They're going back to their hand at the end of the turn. You need to be aware of this because the number one way to misplay with this deck is constantly binding units from your opponent. You, a lot of the time, just do not bind anything from your opponent. You are just using the bind effect to actually get cards in your bind zone, and you're not binding anything from your opponent. You're binding 2 empty circles. You want to be aware that you are not actually removing those cards. In fact, you might be even giving your opponent advantage because you're giving them more effects or more cards in hand and possibly having them re-trigger on-play effects. The second effect is how you multi-attack. When he attacks, you counterblast 1, you suck up 2 rear guards, and then you choose a stealth from bind zone that you set up earlier, probably with the first effect, and then you call it out, and it gets plus 10k for the turn. That plus 10k is only when your opponent is on grade 3, which makes this deck really nice going second because you can really just push for some really annoying numbers on your very first grade 3 turn. Alright, 3 Persona rides, not really much to say here. The Persona rides, notably I'm not playing the Gradle for the 4th Persona ride. You can definitely play this over some filler cards later in this list, but just 3 Persona rides, nothing much to say. And then we have the main unit of the deck, and basically what all the cards sort of revolve around, and that's Unprecedented. Unprecedented is a grade 3 that if he's placed by a card effect, you can Soul Blast 1, draw a card. Basically, when you do Shojodoji's second effect to suck up 2 rear guards, he gains plus 10k. That means by himself, after you use Shojodoji's effect, he's a 23k beater. And then if he's called from Shojodoji's effect, he's a 33k beater. If you're on Persona Ride turn, he's 43k. And if you just hit 1 trigger, he's 53k all by himself, no boosters, anything like that. Because he's draw power, because he hits the best numbers in the deck by himself, he's easily the best call target from Shojodoji, and you want to be trying to call Unprecedented off Shojodoji's second skill from Bind Zone 90% of the time, maybe even 95% of the time. Getting him in rotation is mission critical. You just want to be doing this as much as possible. And you'll see with every other card in this deck, it somehow facilitates Unprecedented just getting back into the bind zone, back into Soul so he can be binded by Shojodoji's effect, and then eventually calling him out during the battle phase to hit great numbers and then also draw you a card at the same time. And to find more Unprecedented, we have 4 Forktail. Forktail is very simple. She's a grade 1, top 7 check for a stealth unit, put into Soul. Most of the time, it is going to be Unprecedented. But as soon as you have your Unprecedenteds in rotation and they're out of the deck, or you just don't find them, you basically just deck thin your deck out just a little bit more. Could be more Forktails, pieces that you don't find yourself actually needing at any point later into the game. Just making sure that you're constantly deck thinning out the stealth units so you can hit more triggers. Forktail is just really nice because she's a grade 1 that immediately gets value, and this really works well with the early aggro strategy. So you can have a really annoying grade 1 turn where you're deck thinning a good amount of times, and then that carries over into the grade 2 turn where you can hit some annoying numbers, and Forktail has already made more than enough value off her by attacking, boosting, and then she already put a card into Soul, so even if they attack into her or they get rid of her somehow, she already did her job. And for more ways to get Unprecedented into Soul, this is the sole reason why I don't mind seeing Unprecedented in my opening hands, because I can just discard him, and then you can throw him back into Soul through Kagechika's effect. Kagechika's on place, you grab a stealth unit from Soul, it can be any stealth unit, normal unit, trigger unit, and you just go +1 in Soul. Like I said, most of the time you'll be grabbing Unprecedented back into Soul, either he was retired or you just discarded him through some effects, and he'll be set up in the Soul, and then Shojodoji can bind him, and now he's in bind zone, and then Shojodoji can get him back out. I actually want to talk about Kagechika's second effect right here, because it is actually really important. I think it's actually the most skill testing part of this deck, is when to resolve Kagechika's second effect. So when a card is placed from your bind zone, by any means, you can put this card into Soul, and then you can draw a card. So that means you can call out the Rideline during the main phase, and then you can put Kagechika into Soul, and you can draw a card immediately. So you can maybe dig for more pieces that help out the rest of your turn. Or when you call something off of Shojodoji's second effect, like the Unprecedented that you're trying to set up, then you can proc a Kagechika to draw an additional card. And so if you have multiple Kagechikas, you can draw a bunch of cards. You can deep draw for some more pieces that you want, specifically PGs, or you can just try to find some more pieces that you just want generally, like maybe Persona Ride. The reason for why this is skill testing is because it's very weird to proc this and trying to get the most value out of Kagechika. Because remember, you're usually swinging with the column that you're going to be sucking up with Shojodoji. So if you're swinging with this, with the column that you want to suck up, it's not really going to work out, because you're going to be sucking up Kagechika before he sees the bind and put himself into Soul. The way you're really proccing this effect is that Kagechika is going to be put into Soul before it's boosted, or if you do boost with him, you're probably swinging with him in a column that's swinging for not that great of a number before the bind unit comes out and before the drive checks happen. So it's just a weird way that you have to understand, like is Kagechika more valuable as a booster this turn, or is he more valuable as an extra draw? Again, Kagechika can just definitely be one of the really weird units in the deck, because you don't really know how much value you really want to get out of him, or what specific value you need out of him that turn. Now let's talk about the most impressive card of this deck, and that's Izasao. Izasao is very simple. He's the other CB for the deck outside of Shojodoji's main skill, and on place, grade 2, so you can call this all the grade 2 Rideline. You counterblast 1, top 5 check for any stealth unit. This notably is a PG, a Persona Ride, or just as something that you're looking for, like the Unprecedented you're trying to find, or Kagechika to get Unprecedented back. This is amazing use of CB, mostly because you really want to try to find some PGs off this. This really extends the deck survivability, just being able to search PGs, and it just gives you some really nice value early. But not only does it give you value from the on-place effect, but if it actually stays on field, your opponent is a lot more threatened. Because when he is sucked into Soul, mandatory effect, you have to bottom deck something in your opponent's bind zone, even if there's something there or not, and then it will give your Vanguard plus 5k. So that plus 5k is actually really annoying. Well, first of all, you'll be putting something in the bind zone on the bottom of the deck. That means you turn Shojodoji's first skill into actual removal, because you're able to bind something, and then you're able to actually get rid of it and make sure it doesn't go back to their hand at the end of the turn. But the plus 5k to the Vanguard is actually really annoying, because usually when you're swinging at a Vanguard with a Vanguard at 18k or 18k plus, that means that actually to 2 to pass something, they usually will need to put another card down to make it a 2 to pass, because there aren't that many 20k shields in this format. And if you swing for, let's say, an 8k booster behind Shojodoji, then that means Shojodoji will be swinging for 21k, and then you get that plus 5k, and then it'll be 26k. So now you're definitely if they want a 2 to pass, you're definitely getting 2 cards out of hand. So just this card by itself, it on place grabs you a card, any card that you want, basically your entire deck from the top 5 cards of your deck. It removes a card from your opponent's board in conjunction with Shojodoji's first effect to bind the opponent's rear guard, and then it gives plus 5k to the Vanguard as well, effectively forcing another card out of your opponent's hand. Just from this card staying on the field and just being annoying, you get so much advantage just from this card resolving when you're just doing your regular stuff with the deck. This is definitely the card you want to be seeing at least 1, maybe 2 of throughout the entire game. It's an advantage magnet. It's so nice. And because we have an extra counter blast now, we need a counter charger. Rideline Kunai is a really unique way to do counter charging, and every time I use this card, I just love it more and more. So the way counter charges is that the card is placed in bind zone, similar to Kagechika. You'll be using this during roughly the same window where you would use Kagechika when something's placed in bind. Rideline Kunai binds himself, and then he countercharges 1 if you do not countercharge for turn. But notably, the card that you place from bind will also get plus 5k. This is actually extremely nice, because sometimes you'll be calling grade 2s out from the bind zone. They usually will. Rideline Kunai will proc, and then we'll give that unit some actual good numbers to hit the magic numbers with the boosters, something like 23k or 33k. But the other effect is just so nice for the deck. When Rhydon Kunai is in the bind zone, so it can be in the bind zone from the grade 1 effect, it's usually in the bind zone from its own effect proccing to counter charge, or you can just bind it off of Shojodoji's effect as well, being one of the cards that you bind during main phase. It's just a 10k shield. You can just call it from the bind zone and then call it a 10k shield there. Basically an extra card in hand. So the more kunais that you just have in the bind zone, it's another card in hand theoretically. An amazing card, and it's such a nice addition to the deck. We have 2 Sukudayachi. Sukudayachi is an incredibly nice privilege to have because basically he's just an extra attack whenever you really need that push in the later game. So Sukudayachi in the bind zone, when 2 or more rearguards are put in a soul at the same time, so basically Shojodoji's second effect, you can call him to an open rearguard circle for a counter blast 1. So this enables a 5th attack because of how you structure the attacks. So let's say right here, let me get it set up. So what would you do, ideally on Persona Ride turns, since Sukudayachi doesn't really give you any power gain, you would swing with this for something like 20k, not a great number, 23k, and then you would attack with Shojodoji for a counter blast. You suck up both of these, you put them into soul, you call out Unprecedented, ideally to the other column without the booster, you proc Unprecedented to draw 1, and then for another counterblast you call it Sukudayachi right here, so now you have a 28k column, and then the Unprecedented should be 33. This is just a really nice way to get 5 attacks in a deck that usually will not be 5 attacking you, so specifically when you're on Persona Ride and they're at 4 or 5 damage, this is some really nice pressure to just put on your opponent, and they're not really expecting it. Sukudayachi's first effect is just to throw him into the bind zone, just to make it, again, he's just really perfect to be just like, oh cool, I found him. Okay, be in the bind zone until the end of the game where I need you. When he's putting a soul from deck or rearguard circle, you bind him, and then he refunds you the cost of soul charge 1. So really, just running him at 2 copies, you can find him off Forktail, you can grab him back with Kagechika from discarding him. He's just really easy to find later, and then just throw him in the bind zone, so when you can actually do your multi-attack turn. You don't every game use this 5th attack, but when it comes up, it's really appreciative. Next, running 3 Madoka. This is just the ideal filler card. Madoka is just a 10k booster, 10k shield pretty early in the game, and then later into the game, he just becomes a 15k shield. An incredibly nice privilege for a normal unit to be 15k shield in this format, even nowadays, and this card's a card from set 3. It's a stealth name too, it's just more stealth name, so you can actually hit off your grade 2 Rideline, and then also for your Shojodoji stuff. It's hard to go wrong with this card. Like I said earlier, if you want to play the Regulus piece for the Persona Ride, you can just get rid of 1 Madoka, then just play 2 here, and then just play the Regulus piece. Well, that's all really much to say. It's never a bad card. And then rounding out the units, we actually have 2 Defensing Roar. Defensing Roar, I think if you're playing Dragon Empire, you should try to be playing Defensing Roar at some number of copies. I think this card is just that strong. It's just really, really impactful in some hands, and even in hands where it's not super impactful, it's still just like, oh cool, it's just decent shield at the end of the day. One of the things that comes up more often than you might think is that OT is a valid target for Defensing Roar. Defensing Roar will target a card on the Guardian Circle without Sentinel, so this is valid, and it'll give it plus 10k shield, but more importantly, it'll return itself back to the hand at the end of that battle. So that means some turns, effectively, if you have this 2-card combo of Defensing Roar and OT, you can basically turn skip your opponent. You basically pseudo PG 2 of their attacks. So if they're a 4 attack deck, or God forbid a 3 attack deck, you basically just like, at most you took 2 cards out of the hand, and then maybe you just eat the other damage that from the other attacks. It's just so easy to just completely fade away a turn of just getting any advantage out of that your opponent wants to get out of your hand because you have this combo. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but like, let's think about the stuff that even if you don't have OT in your hand with Defensing Roar, you can just put a regular crit, and this is still insane value. For 2 cards, this equals 40k worth of shield value. Just incredibly nice. But not only is the application with triggers just for raw shield value, you can also use Defensing Roar as a way to get unit backs that you want units back for next turn. So, for example, you can intercept with Izuso and then bounce it back to hand, and then hey, you have an Izuso for next turn that you can just get more advantage from, or just protect it so you can use a removal effect. You can also call Rhydon Kunai from the bind, and then the Defensing Roar will actually pick it back up and put it into your hand. Effectively, this being a 20k shield that just gives you a card back to hand. It basically refunds itself. Defensing Roar is just so nice. It is easily the best Blitz order in D format, except for Sanctitude, I guess. And if you're playing Dragon Empire, I would definitely try to find some way to play this in some capacity. It's just so nice. It's like, sometimes it just goes crazy, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, this is just like a decent card. It's just impossible for me to find a scenario where this card's bad. PGs, it's still the old PGs. Make sure to buy Shiranui at the end of the month. Shiranui will upgrade these PGs into the effect PGs. Not much else to say here, except for should you be running Sanctitude here? So right now, because one, I'm running defensing roar. I'm not running Sanctitude because the Blitz orders conflict, because Blitz orders are still once per turn. But as soon as Shiranui and Luard come out, you definitely should be playing Sanctitude here, because obviously Sanctitude will be online a lot of the times, because Shiranui and Luard will be popular. But another reason to run the full stealth PGs is because in some game states, you really need Izuso to not whiff the PG top 5 check. And if you run Sanctitude, Sanctitude's not a stealth unit, so that's a way you can whiff. When the Stride decks maybe get pushed out a little bit, that's when you'll go back to 4 regular stealth PGs. But in the upcoming format, probably play 3 stealth and then 1 Sanctitude. I'm on the D format classic, 3 draws, and then 8 crit. 4 heals, of course. Just the regular heals. We might be going into a restanding heal format. Maybe in crit it might be nice. That's not really what this video is for. Just figure out what you need for the meta. 3 draw. I don't think fronts are wrong, but defensive draws are just so impactful this format. But I can definitely see why you could play fronts, especially playing Defensing Roar too, because then that's 50k shield value with 2 cards. But I'm still just playing draws because it's just so good defensively. I can't deny it. 8 crits. I will say that technically it is optimal to play the stealth crits and heals, or all the stealth triggers that you can, because Shojodoji could technically call out the trigger from the bind zone. That will not happen, because everything else in this deck says normal unit except for that. Shojodoji and Kagechika technically says stealth card, not stealth normal unit. So if you literally have nothing in the bind zone and you want to go plus on soul, this is where having the triggers be stealth is technically optimal. It doesn't matter that much in the end. Realistically, that should not really come up. But yeah, just sticking with the classic 8 crit, 3 draw for D format special, and then OT. You can argue blue, red, Dragon Empire OT. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think red OT might actually have some arguable merit over the Dragon Empire OT, but I don't know, the blue one can too. It doesn't matter that much at the end of the day. Alright, let's just really quickly go through, not exactly test hands, but just showing you my thought process through the write-up turns, because that's really a lot of the important parts of playing a deck nowadays. So we got some good early game pieces. We found Forktail, which we want to see. We found Izuso, which we also want to see for our grade 2 turn, or at least before our grade 3 turn, or on our grade 3 turn. I think I'm just going to go 3 back here. This is a piece that we can find later. Ditching this for write-up is perfectly fine because we can grab it for Kagechika. But I think I will just do 3 back here just to keep it simple. Sometimes I do want to keep shield value in hand, just to make sure that I get through the early game well, but that's fine enough. And then I draw 3 more cards. We got a Kunai and more shield value and a PG. Pretty nice hand. Going first, I would like to see a Persona Ride, but we can definitely find that through other means later. Even that Izuso might be able to find us Persona Ride later. Shuffle up here. This is me going first. I'm gonna draw for turn. We got 2 shield value here. I think I am actually just going to just this Kunai for right now, because like I said, we can grab it back with Kagechika later, and then we can get value off of that when we can bind it later. And we're going to ride into the grade 1, and then top 5 check. Speaking of Kagechika, oh, there's 2 right there. Forktail. I already have a Forktail in hand. I actually want to be keeping Kagechikas in the deck more than Forktail. So I think I'll actually put Kagechika or Forktail into the soul right here, and then I'll probably just split it. We'll do 1 Kagechika into mine and 1 Forktail into the soul. You do want to make sure that you're keeping your more important pieces in the deck. Forktail kind of outlives its usefulness later into the game, while Kagechika can be a lot more useful later. So that's why I usually like keeping Kagechikas in the deck if I have the option to. But I think just splitting it up here and seeing that I already have 1 Forktail in hand, it's perfectly fine like this. And speaking of Forktail in hand, I'm actually going to I'll throw down Forktail right behind the Vanguard. Top 7 check. See if we can find Unprecedented. We did. Up some Persona Rides. Yep. And then we're going to throw this Unprecedented. Like I said, we want to find Unprecedented early. And I'm going to throw it into Soul right now with Forktail. That's why we're running her. And then we're just going to shuffle up for the second time. And then we're just going to pass. And then we're going to take our 1 damage, because we probably wouldn't block it. I'll draw for turn, and there's a Persona Ride. Our hand is so nice that we are probably going to discard. We could high roll and technically just find the Izuso that we want to use this turn off the grade 2, but I'm not going to take that risk. I'm just going to discard the shield value. I have some already shield value in hand, so I'm not super worried about it. We're going to check for the top 5. Oh, and there's the Izuso, like I said, and hey, that's not a bad target either. I have an Izuso in hand, but I think I'm actually going to put this Izuso into Soul, and then I'm going to put this Ride-on onto Field from the Call effect, because I actually do kind of want to resolve the counter charge this game. I would only do, obviously off the grade 2 check, I would almost always get the Izuso here, but I already have one here, and I feel like I can actually use this Kunai counter charge pretty usefully. And then we're just going to get Izuso, the one for my hand, we're Counter Blast 1, we have 2 nice columns right here, top 5 check for a unit, and we got a PG. So you could argue that maybe getting another 4 teal is fine. We don't really need the Ride-on Kunai, and then Sukudaiachi we don't exactly need right now until later. But you could argue the 4 teal is a nice grab here since we do already have a PG, but I feel like just getting PGs now is a lot better than trying to find them later when your resources are maybe more limited. And we're just going to do a simple turn. They're on grade 1, so these are hitting 10k over trigger, so these are nice values. I probably do. Vanguard swing here. Oh, another Izuso. And then swing with it here. So their grade 2 turn, we're gonna swing, they're gonna swing and hit us for Sukudaiachi, and then because I want to do the counter charge play next turn, we'll guard this next attack that they do, whether it's at here or at this Izuso right here. We'll draw for turn, Defensing Roar. I will get rid of this extra Izuso that I have in hand. I don't think we need to resolve another Izuso super badly right now since we already have one on field, and we already have plenty of nice pieces in our hand that he can search. And then we're going to restand, and then we're going to immediately do the bind effect. We probably wouldn't, if they did call something down on the grade 2 turn, we can bind it and then put it on bottom deck with Izuso. So right here, so we have the unprecedented here. So this is a little interesting. So like I said, I do actually want to proc the Ride-on Kunai. I think I'm actually going to do it in a little bit of a weird way. Yeah, I like this way. So we're going to, yeah, sure. I'm actually going to do it like this. So I'm going to bind the unprecedented for later, and then I'm going to bind one of these 2 units that I can call out, and I think it's actually going to be the grade 2. So what I'll do here is I'm actually going to call out the grade 2. I'm going to call out the grade 2 for a Soul Blast right here, and I'm actually going to do this turn a little bit weird because they're still on grade 2. I'm actually going to swing with this grade 2 right here, and then hoping that they don't really hit a defensive. If they do, it's not the end of the world. But I'm going to swing right here for 18. They probably would guard this because if they did guard this, you could play this a little bit weirdly. But let's say they did guard this, or at the very least they didn't hit defensive, so we can swing with this column. So we're gonna now swing with the Vanguard, and then for Counter Blast 1, we're going to suck up the front row actually, put these into here, and then we're going to put Precedent here. On Precedent procs, we're going to Soul Blast 1, probably another Izuso since it's duplicates. And then we're going to draw a card, another Unprecedented, and then Ride-on Kunai will proc to countercharge 1. And then Unprecedented will be plus 15 here, 10 from his own skill, and then 5 from the Ride-on Kunai. We do not have the plus 10k from Shojodoji skill yet because they're not on grade 3 yet. Then we're going to do a Twin Drive, 1, 2, crit, and then the power here, so this will be another plus 10k. And then boom. This would be a 38k swing. They would probably hit a trigger, but even if they hit a trigger and they're on 20k right now, this is still be 20k shield value. A really nice grade 3 turn. But then we would pass on this, and we do have the extra 10k shield value from Ride-on Kunai in the bind zone. So let's say we use that during this turn, do a nice easy guard for free. Let's say we have 2 defensing roars, so we probably would use this turn. We'll put down the crit here, defensing roar, grab this crit back. There, the guard with the crit that we just put back in the hand, and then we'll take a damage. We probably wouldn't heal because we did hit a crit on that first turn, and then we can take another damage. Up, with another crit. Maybe we wouldn't need to guard that much. Up, and then we would draw for turn. Up, draw, which we got that defensively. We'll do our Persona Ride, draw. And then here, it's a little bit weird. We didn't find a way to get another Unprecedented. That's what, like I said, we also didn't find another Kagechika. Just a little bit unfortunate, but we do have a lot of Counter Blasts, so we're not going to be able to call Unprecedented off of Shojodoji effect this turn, but we can still get some value. We're actually going to be calling Izuso off of the Shojodoji effect this turn because we do have the extra CB open from countercharging earlier. We're going to do that, and then we're also going to put the grade 1 into Soul, and then we're going to Soul Blast 1 to call it out, suck up this, and then we're going to call this Unprecedented right here, and then we're going to keep it simple like this. We're going to swing for 21 right here, because we want this Unprecedented in the Soul for next turn, and we're going to swing for 31, oh sorry, this would be 31 because we Persona Road this turn, and then we're going to swing for 31 on Vanguard. We're going to, this is technically optimal, counter blast that one, then we're going to suck up these 2 idiots, call out Izuso. Izuso will be plus 10 here. Then so it would be 30k. Then Izuso will proc. We're going to look at the top 5 cards of our deck here. Oh, another Persona Ride. Oh, there's OT. Probably get another Persona Ride for next turn. Yeah, definitely. We definitely want to help our next turn out because we just have a lot of defensive value in hand. We don't actually have a lot of units. But let's see what we get off the drive checks here. Alright, then we do that, Forktail, and then Kagechika. There's our units. But then this turn would just be a simple 30k attack, and then Preston would actually be 33 by himself without any triggers, anything like that. And then we'd probably take a damage next turn. Oh, there's PG. We would still definitely survive this turn. It'd be a little crusty, but we'd probably have to use 2 of our PGs, but we definitely would survive. And then we could do a Persona Ride turn next turn. I think we discarded a Sukadaiachi earlier. No, we did not, but we could probably find a Sukadaiachi through the Forktail. And then we could do, because we have 2 CB open, we can Persona Ride, and then we can do our 5 attack turn that I was mentioning during the profile. But that's basically the rhythm of the deck. It goes to show how important Unprecedented is. It goes to show how sometimes you can actually just like trying to proc Izuso as much as you can is really important because Izuso can find PGs, find you more pieces, and then he's also just removal too. That was hard to showcase in this little test run, but Izuso was, when he was sucked up, he was also removing a card from the opponent as well. But yeah, that's basically the deck. Again, some really weird plays you have to be doing sometimes just because you have to manipulate their bind zone in certain ways, and you have to be figuring out just like, okay, am I doing 4 attacks like this, with this column, with this column? Am I doing 2 attacks before the Vanguard swing? Am I doing 1 attack before the Vanguard swing? It's just a really weird deck that you just have to be playing a bit to get the hang of. But anyways, that's all I really have to say about the deck. It's one of my favorite deck in D format right now, so give it a try. It's still relatively cheap. Thank you very much for watching.